Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Yale School of Management MBA for Executives panel to highlight the Pozen-Commonwealth Fund Fellowship. My name is Wendy Sung and I serve as the Assistant Dean of the MBA for Executives program, and I'm joined by my colleagues and panelists, Dr. Marcella Nunes-Smith, Dr. Cece Calhoun, and Dr. Howie Foreman. Thank you for joining us today. In light of the pandemic we have collectively experienced over the last several months, we're also greatly aware of the righteous outrage across our nation as we stand in solidarity with the Black community. We are privileged to host our panelists at this important time in our history, as their work plays a significant role in solving for inequities within healthcare and dismantling structural barriers that exist within the healthcare system. Through them, you will learn about the mission of the Pozen-Commonwealth Fund Fellowship and its significance within the MBA for Executive program. We'll spend about the next half hour or so with our panelists, and we'll save some time at the end of the session to answer your questions live. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Commonwealth Fund, it was established in 1918 by Anna Harkness with the mandate to do something for the welfare of mankind. The Commonwealth Fund promotes a high-performing healthcare system that achieves better access, improved quality, and greater efficiency, particularly for society's most vulnerable, including low-income people, the uninsured, and people of color. And now I'd like for our panelists to please take a moment to introduce yourself. Please share with us your professional and personal background, and perhaps a positive outcome thus far, despite the current pandemic. And I want to just say that I know we only have Dr. Foreman for the first half hour of this webinar, so thank you for all of your time. Maybe if we can start with Marcella.
Great, thank you so much, Wendy. It's really nice to be able to have some time today to talk about the fellowship program with all of you. So I'm Marcella Nunes-Smith, and I am the director of the Pozen-Commonwealth Fellowship in Health Equity Leadership that is based here at the School of Management. Just by way of background for me, so I'm a practicing general internal medicine physician, having been here at Yale now for about 15 years, but who's counting, after completing training in internal medicine up at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, and then coming to Yale actually to be a fellow in what was then the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Clinical Scholars Program. And that's where I met the esteemed Dr. Foreman, who was one of my faculty and has taught me everything that I know about policy in the healthcare space. And it's really been quite the deepest of professional honors to be in this role as director of this fellowship. The fellows you'll hear from Dr. Calhoun, one of our star members of the inaugural cohort, in just a few minutes, but just an incredible bench of talent in terms of the folks who are part of the fellowship program. You know, for me, when I'm not at SOM seeing patients, I'm running a research center that's based at the School of Medicine. That's the Equity Research and Innovation Center, or ERIC, where we largely conduct NIH supported research towards health equity broadly. And I know we'll probably talk some of COVID. You asked for a positive thing. I've had an opportunity to serve as a member of Governor Lamont, that's the governor for Connecticut, of his Reopen Connecticut task force. And I see so much optimism just from the hard work of all of the folks who are part of the administration and other sort of expert volunteers on that committee, and have really just done, I think, amazing rapid policy work, much with input from friends and colleagues we rely on. I know I relied on Dr. Foreman to help us with that work as well. So, you know, I think our state has just done great, and we have many models now for others in this reopening process. But I look forward to our time today.
Thank you. Dr. Calhoun?
Hi, everybody. My name is Cece Calhoun. I am a pediatric and young adult hematologist at Washington University and St. Louis Children's Hospital. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan, and did all my training there prior to coming to WashU for PET mock fellowship. I am in the inaugural class of Pozen-Commonwealth scholars, and it has been no less than a tremendous honor to not only be in the Yale School of Management community, but to have the mentorship and leadership of Dr. Nunes-Smith and Dr. Foreman. When I think about positive impacts during COVID. Certainly, as a practitioner, as I'm sure many of you all are, particularly the optimization of telehealth. For us, Zoom can be good and bad, but for many of our patients who face challenges like transportation, being able to quickly employ telephone medicine and telehealth to give them the access to care that they need has been really good. And yeah, so go on with the flow.
Great. And Dr. Foreman?
Thank you. You know, as Marcella said, it's been, you know, probably one of the highlights of my career to be affiliated with this program, the Pozen-Commonwealth Fellowship. We have built a program at the School of Management over the last couple of decades that is consistent with the mission and value of the school to educate leaders for business and society. The school itself was founded on principles of not-for-profit and public sector management, and we've been able to maintain that theme and thread throughout everything that we do. Our ability to influence and improve healthcare for everyone, and particularly to decrease healthcare disparities and improve health equity, are things that we believe in our soul are part of what we were, you know, put here to do, quite honestly. And so this program, which is so new, is part of that opportunity. And you know, as has been mentioned, I've been fortunate to know Dr. Nunez-Smith for 16 years now. But this is the first time that we've been able to really work together consistently on a project for the last few years, and to spend the last year with the first year class, and now to have welcomed the second year class in the last week. So I am committed and passionate about this program. I'm convinced that over the next few decades, this is going to make a significant difference, positive difference in society, and in really addressing the issues around structural racism, around healthcare disparities, and being able to basically, you know, make healthcare better in the country at large. I would say over the last few months, I got very actively involved in coronavirus policy in late February, and have been deeply invested in both sort of messaging and trying to tamp down on disinformation, as well as promote better information. Very early on, you know, one of the themes that emerged in my interviews and my writing was about health equity and coronavirus, because there was nothing that could have been more striking about this particular acute health event than its disparate impact on communities of color, and particularly Black people in America. And so I, you know, started writing even more about that, and fortunate to do now 2 pieces with Dr. Nunez-Smith about that. We have one that's provisionally accepted to a journal, and one that we published in Hartford Current earlier, and wrote another piece separately with our Deputy Dean for Diversity in the School of Medicine as well. So this is not something that I participate in as a hobby. This is something that is very important to me, and something that I will continue to pursue and work on, because it is something that will unfortunately not disappear in our lifetimes, but we all have to commit to working on it. And I'll pause there.
Well, Dr. Foreman, I thank you for all the work that you're doing in the space. And I also want to point out that you're also, in addition to all of that you're doing, you're also an extremely busy person at Yale, being jointly appointed at the School of Medicine, the School of Public Health, the School of Management, and I feel like I'm missing one.
Economics department, yeah.
There you go. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
And he sees patients, you know, he's practicing still as a radiologist.
We all are, right?
That's right. That's
we
right.
all do this. We learn how to
It's
do
patient duty. Mm-hmm.
But in addition to all of that, Dr. Foreman, you were one of the original co-founders of the MBA for Executives program at the Yale School of Management. Would you speak a little bit to the historical context and the inspiration of launching this program specifically for the healthcare professionals?
Yes, so you know, my co-founder, in fact, had a retirement ceremony just last week. And so I've been reflecting on this a lot. In 1998, we had the first major conversation about this at the School of Management when we inked an agreement for the MD MBA program. In 2002, a faculty meeting was held. I was working in Washington at the time and joined by teleconference, and we decided to move forward with an EMBA program in the healthcare space only. And by 2005, we had our first class seated, and the rest is history, as they say. But as you look at it, you see that the seeds of this were planted a long time ago when, our alum, William Beinecke, whose name is all over Yale's campus, first argued that Yale deserved to have a business school. And if it was going to have a business school, it should have one that, serves the unique mission of Yale University itself. And that's how the school evolves. And that's how we get to the point where in 1998, the school was very receptive to a joint degree program with the School of Medicine. And fast forward to 2005, and we have a group of healthcare MBA candidates, and we're able to provide them content because we have multidisciplinary faculty across the campus and schooling, including the School of Public Health and the School of Medicine at that time. And then fast forward further to the about 9 years ago or 8 years ago when David Bach came here and basically, as I say, professionalized our entire program, because as a startup, we were really, just figuring our way out. And the arrival of Dean Bach and allowed us to think about how do we professionalize every single component of it to really make it a jewel. And it is a jewel. It's always been gold, and you don't need to do much to make gold shine, but David made gold shine. And the program right now has 2 other tracks, but I will say that the healthcare track is obviously always the most important to me. And I think we have always been able to fulfill our mission with admissions. The Pozen-Commonwealth Fund Fellowship allows us to bring in candidates who might not otherwise be able to do the program. And I won't, I'll let Dr. Calhoun speak to her classmates, but at least one of them, I don't believe would have been able to do such a program working within the public sector and being able to afford really what is a very expensive education program. And she was able to do that, and others are going to be able to do that. And that's part of why this is so important, is making this accessible to everybody, not just subspecialists, not just executives who are high up within a corporation.
And you were instrumental in bringing the Commonwealth Fund Fellowship to the School of Management. And Dr. Nunez-Smith, you are now the faculty director for the fellowship. Can you talk a little bit about how the fellowship is designed to support leaders in health equity, and what the anticipated impact of this fellowship is on leaders within health equity?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is so apropos to start with Dr. Foreman giving us that background, but he didn't talk as much about his instrumental role in bringing the Pozen-Commonwealth Fund Fellowship here. And as you sort of mentioned, this began with an engagement with the Commonwealth Fund. And now we are so fortunate to have a gift from Bob Pozen that has endowed the fellowship program. And so hence its new and expanded name to the Pozen-Commonwealth Fund Fellowship. I think this vision that Dr. Foreman was able to share with the fund, and I was so honored to be a part of that conversation, around the need to expand the toolkit in the world of health equity. And so that we need folks who are trained, as I have been with a master's in health sciences, or many colleagues with MPH degrees or MPPs, but really to be intentional about the business case that one often makes to address health equity. And knowing that we need people at the table like Dr. Calhoun, who will have that skill set, who will be able to communicate and lead from a business perspective. And that's just so deeply invaluable. So we've built the fellowship program really on top of such a strong base in the EMBA healthcare track. And we've been able to supplement what already is a very rigorous curriculum for these students, but through the fellowship to have additional experiences through immersion sort of visits. We just did our immersion visit as a virtual this year, given the reality, to make sure that we have opportunities to expand the knowledge networks of our fellows. So often that is what is career and opportunity determining, is sort of who do you know and who can be sponsors for you. And we want to make sure that we, again, with intentionality, approach that piece of it. We're able to gather through additional seminars that will focus and feature health equity leaders already and impart additional skills to the fellows. And every fellow leads a capstone project as a second year as well, which gives an opportunity to kind of put all of the learning to practical use. And so it's a very comprehensive and busy, quite frankly, 22 months with us. But we, I was asked the other day by President Salave about the future stardom of our fellows, and I was so proud to be able to say they are stars. This is a program for folks who are mid-career, so people have already demonstrated just really extraordinary accomplishment, and so it's a little bit like cheating for us because we already are bringing in amazing folks and just hoping to give a little bit more around sort of mentoring and skills to just continue the launch of their career.
Thank you. And Dr. Calhoun, you're one of 3 fellows in the inaugural cohort of the Pozen-Commonwealth Fund Fellowship. How has the program and fellowship impacted your work, your leadership, and your reach towards solving for disparity? And also, can you tell us a little bit about the demonstrated commitment to health equity from your cohort of fellows?
Absolutely. And I want to preface by saying there's no way I'll be able to do justice in a single conversation to the caliber, quality, and commitment of co-fellows that I have, or what this program has done for all of us. And I'm sure that they would say the same thing. But in my intro, I am a pediatric hematologist, but my clinical and research interests center around the care of patients with sickle cell disease, primarily African-American, right, affected by the structural and social determinants of health. And as a fellow, I focus my project and my fellowship training, my medical fellowship training about and transition from pediatric to adult care. And as you dig deeper, you just have more questions, right? And what I began to realize is that, it isn't that our patients aren't well educated or that our providers aren't earnest. It's that we're kind of functioning in a system that's suboptimal, okay? If I can be kind. And what I also realized is that what's important for us to do is find that nexus of quality and financial interest in hospital and sustainability and create that value proposition. And the other thing is that as practitioners, all of us, we are put in positions of leadership, right? And so, but often we don't get formal training. And if you're lucky, like I have been, I've had great mentorship, but what this fellowship has done is it has, put me in a position to have all of those things on another level. I think in my classroom work, understanding how businesses operate and how those things are and techniques are readily applicable to the hospital setting is important. The leadership training, the ability to be thoughtful leaders with Yale and its particular focus on business and society, being able to take the time to really dig into to not just surface level leadership, but quality leadership and understanding your leadership style as you go back into the hospital and you lead teams. You lead teams as a resident, as a fellow, as an attending, you lead teams. And then what Dr. Nunez-Smith alluded to earlier is this network, this ability to have sponsors, to have people that advocate for you, to have people that can listen to what you're saying and help you grow that idea to something that's much more impactful and significant. And it's just a tremendous opportunity. It's so exciting. And so my 2 co-fellows, one, Kenitha Gaines, who just recently completed her doctorate of nurse practitioner at Yale School of Management, is a nurse that is committed to the care of the underserved. She runs several clinics in Southern California and has a deep ingrained commitment to populations that are affected by health disparities. In fact, she has another degree. Her degree is African American Studies. She has a master's, and I believe she also has one in, I want to say, urban planning, but lives and does that work every single day. And then Crystal Yates, who is the Deputy Commissioner of EMS in the city of Philadelphia, the first African American woman to hold that role. not only is there as a first responder, but also is an advocate, not just for people in the community, but for her colleagues that she sees every day. She's the type of person that says, you know, I see this problem. How do I address that strategically? And what the School of Management has done is it's given us that skill set to address these things strategically. I think that we get like fantastic training about pathophysiology and the nuances of disease as we grow in our medical training, but it's important for us to be able to really combine that with business strategy and knowledge to really make a sustained impact. And so I am so thankful for this fellowship, but also for my colleagues who take what we learn every day and we continue to agitate one another, encourage and push one another to apply that knowledge even before we've graduated. So
great. And you guys are an incredible class, absolutely. As a follow-up to sort of your introduction of your classmates, Dr. Nunez-Smith and Dr. Foreman, this question is directed at you. As faculty directors, can you provide more insight into the type of candidates that the fellowship is seeking and what type of qualifications would ensure the maximum impact from participating in the Pozen-Commonwealth Fund Fellowship and the MBA for Executives program?
Okay, thank you. Do you want to start, Howie? Especially
why don't you start? I still have enough time to be on here.
Okay, great. So certainly in terms of the candidates for the Pozen-Commonwealth Fund Fellowship, we can probably start with that as far as what we're looking for. Obviously, to become a fellow, it is, requires one to be a strong candidate as well for the executive MBA program. And so those conversations are important to be had in tandem. For the fellowship itself, I think I said before, we are looking for people who are sort of approaching or in mid-career, really. So I think, we have an outstanding sibling program that is supported by the Commonwealth Fund that is located at Harvard. That is an in-residence program. And that is typically for people who are earlier in their careers. And so that's one thing that we're looking at for sure as an eligibility criteria, is sort of where one is in the career stage. Of course, why are we looking for someone who is mid-career? Because it's very important to us, and this is a process that we do in collaboration with the Commonwealth Fund in terms of identifying the strongest candidates. We're really looking for people who have been doing this work, right? Who have demonstrated already leadership in health equity through their professional roles and responsibilities. And so that is a really important driver for eligibility, is that demonstrated knowledge. We often talk about this fellowship being like health equity 2.0. So we do expect our fellows to come in with firm grounding in a lot of the relevant frameworks and constructs already, and really being quite facile with health equity in that way. But as you can see by the fellows that we have, we also select on nice, right? We're looking for people who can work well with one another, who are going to be kind leaders also. And we're very fortunate that we have just a great pool of candidates to choose from, where we can select both on sort of accomplishment, achievement, potential, drive, passion, but also just kind of good folks.
Thank you. And Dr. Foreman?
What I would add to that is, because I see the questions coming in and I know that what the individuals are looking for. And I would say one thing, we are open to having a conversation with anybody. Like, we are very open-minded about listening to your story, your personal journey, what you want to achieve. Ideally, when you're running a fellowship like this, you're looking to find people who obviously have the competence, capability, and passion to succeed in the program, but we're also looking for individuals where we're going to have the greatest impact. And so sometimes you find somebody who's younger, earlier in their career, sometimes somebody's a little later in their career. We don't, in general, want to take people straight out of training, so that's true, but we would love to start having that conversation with you right out of training, for those of you that are asking that specific question. I see somebody's asking a question about whether we would take physician assistant. Absolutely. We are completely open to anybody who has any clinical facing role, anybody who interacts with either individuals or even society in a clinical public health manner. And so we would love to look at all candidates. It is very much true that you have to be a capable candidate who can get into the EMBA program, which is no small hurdle on its own, but we're happy to even give you advice about what types of things you can do to make certain that your application is strong in that way. So I would just emphasize the fact that to anybody who's watching this and saying, this may be too hard for me to get into or too difficult, have the conversation with us, because you'd be surprised at how much advice we can give you and how open we are to hearing about your personal journey.
Thank you. I know we're going to lose you in 5 minutes, so maybe as we come to a close, before we move into Q&A, Dr. Foreman, if you can start with a little bit of advice for when we're looking at glaring disparities that COVID has further highlighted within the Black and Brown communities. What are the important next steps to address these inequalities within healthcare? And what can others within the healthcare system do to create lasting change?
Yeah, I think the first step is to acknowledge that there's a problem. And as somebody who is an educator, I think I do my best job just trying to, provide the information and explain it in a way that allows people to recognize that there is legitimately a problem, that this is not about socioeconomic status. This is not about, poorer communities or geographies. This is not about blue states versus red states. That we have a systemic problem in this country that only can begin to be addressed if people acknowledge that the problem really exists. Once you acknowledge that, then you can inform yourself with the research that is ongoing about how the problem arises, what types of strategies we can take to mitigate the problem. It's not going to go away quickly. It's probably not going to go away in my lifetime. The disparities will continue to exist. I think that the Equity Research Center that Dr. Nunez-Smith runs and the other sort of health services researchers on this campus and elsewhere that do research in this area are very important. I mean, for me, the most striking thing at the beginning of this pandemic was the reality that people were, that richer people were being tested, and quite frankly, whiter people were being tested. And even when we started to set up testing, we basically went after whiter communities first, not even just richer communities, but whiter communities. And then you need to be able to actually address the issues of loss of confidence in government and authoritarian work that really is not unexpected in the Black community. There's a lot of reasons why they've lost faith in our police force, our governance, and so on. And we have to work on that. That's not just a healthcare work. That's a systemic challenge that we have. So I am going to drop off the call at this point to join another webinar. It's a pleasure to meet any of and all of you that are on here today, and to work with both Dr. Nunez-Smith as well as Dr. Calhoun and her now 4 separate fellows that she has joined. And we will see. I will see you hopefully on campus at some time.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Foreman.
Thank you.
And if I can ask if Dr. Nunez-Smith or Dr. Calhoun would like to add anything to that.
I did want to say that as part of our immersion, and my Power and Politics professor, Heidi Brooks, she wrote our article recently that was on Yale Insights about making real change in your organization. I would encourage anybody listening to take a peek at that. One of the things that she mentioned was, in this time of COVID and racial unrest, that it's important for us to think long-term and think about where our aspirations connect to impact. For many of us on this call, I think that what we're seeing in the spotlight now is not new information to us. We know about disparities, we know about violence, we know about structural inequality. And it's about looking at your own aspirations and figuring out where they can connect to impact. And for me, that's been one of the critical things about this fellowship, is helping me add some real rich character to what that looks like. And I want to say that, before I started, I had one idea of like what I wanted to do, but being at the School of Management, working with Dr. Nunez Smith really has encouraged me to think bigger. And so as we come up with creative solutions, because we're all, we all bright people, as we come up with creative solutions that we're very, very purposeful about where our aspirations meet our impact for this, and that we understand that it's long-term, and that we all play our role. So I wanted to share that.
I have nothing to add. I cannot say any better than Dr. Calhoun.
Thank you. Well, then before we move to the question and answer session, just a few words about the admissions and application process. We'll open our application in August with the first deadline in late October. We'll definitely have additional webinars that will speak more to the MBA for Executives program at Yale School of Management and the application process. So be on the lookout for those. And the best next step is to really complete a pre-assessment through our website, or email us directly at emba.admissions@yale.edu. As Dr. Foreman said, please talk to us and engage in that dialogue so we can figure out, if this is the right program for you. With that, then, let's move on to addressing any questions that may have come through. The first one is, can you speak more about the structure of immersive visits and seminars amidst an executive program structure? So I know we talked a little bit about our immersion that just occurred, was it last week? Last week. But Dr. Nunez Smith, maybe you can talk a little bit about all of the additional things that happens as part of this fellowship.
Yeah, no, perfect. It's a great question. Of course, the executive format, our students continue to have their day jobs while they are fellows. And for many of these folks, the very characteristics that that make you a strong candidate means that your day job probably might be a couple day jobs, sort of all in one, on roles and responsibilities. And so I think in general, the Emba is really sensitive to this reality. It does become a busy 22-month period for folks. So we're also mindful of that in the fellowship. We did talk about the immersive site visits. So those happen once each academic year. Those are obviously preferably done in person. This year we did it virtually. The format of that is typically sort of a 2 to 3 day period. So that's an additional time commitment outside of what would be a commitment with the Emba program. And then we gather as groups and what I sort of affectionately refer to as the Thursday nights. And so when there's a class week, which is roughly every other week, and many of those Thursday nights then will gather as a group. So that will be the first years and the second year scholars and myself for some of these additional curricular components. So that is outside of the Emba time. And then I meet with each fellow sort of one-on-one about twice a month, just for some individualized conversation and mentoring and professional development. So, but I have to say that we are very mindful. I often do talk about the current 5 fellows as founder cohort. This is a new program. And so we are incredibly interested in kind of co-designing and optimizing the experience for our fellows as we go. But that's currently where we stand in terms of additional time commitments.
Thank you. We have another question about how the fellowship has been structured or how it's moved given the uptick in COVID cases and the discussion of hybrid classroom settings versus delayed reopening of schools in the fall. And I'll take a part of that in that Yale, along with all the other universities, went completely online in March. However, we are expecting our fellows to come back in person starting July. However, during this time, even though we've been sort of operating online, I think the fellows and have continued to be engaged in this, the immersive experience of the fellowship itself. And so I don't know if Dr. Calhoun or Dr. Nunez Smith, if one of you would like to talk a little bit about sort of how that's continued.
So I can just make a little bit of a comment about how we've been able to interact with each other virtually. And prior to this call, I was just commenting on our recent immersion and how it's been one of the most engaging Zoom experiences that I've had. What is to not be understated is the value of this fellowship in terms of where you're spending your time. It is an incredibly busy 22 months, but the leadership is very respectful of your time. And when there's time that you dedicate to this, it's just the value cannot be understated. And so I think that was not, Dr. Nunez-Smith is being very humble in that the Equity Research and Innovation Center is a nexus of healthcare disparities research. And we get to interact with the scholars and colleagues very informally and formally, which is fantastic. Our immersion experiences expose us to people who I personally would have never had the opportunity. We were talking with the former Surgeon General in a small group of about 8 people. And so it's worth it. I just want to say that. And so, in that kind of space, it is digital, it is suboptimal, but it's still quite engaging and uplifting and building. So it's, we've had to adapt, but it's been still fantastic having done the immersion in person before.
Thank you. And I know you've also been able to continue the dialogue with your faculty advisor, as well as Dr. Nunez-Smith throughout this entire time, working on your proposal and in your work. So,
I mean, we're all adjusting, like in our careers and in our lives, and so accordingly in this fellowship.
Great, thank you. We have a question about how can I make my application both stand out for admissions to the Emba program and also make it clear that I'm a good fit for the fellowship. And as part of the application process for the fellowship, there is a separate essay question that we ask people to complete, and that specifically addresses sort of your background and interest in the fellowship, as well as how the type of impact for both your personal and professional development that will prepare you for leadership role in transforming organizations and communities to improve healthcare access and outcomes for vulnerable populations. So there is an opportunity for you to clearly share with us why this is a good fit, why this fellowship is a good fit for what you've been doing and what your trajectory is. Additionally, there's also a separate interview process that occurs during the interview. If you're invited to interview, you will not only interview for your seat within the MBA for Executives program, but you will also interview with Dr. Nunez-Smith as faculty director of the fellowship, as well as representatives from the Commonwealth Fund Fellowship. So it is a well-rounded process, not only to take you through the admissions process for the program, but also for the fellowship as well. And as Dr. Nunez-Smith said before, we're looking for people who are, in addition to all of that, we're looking for people who will be kind leaders and who will make an impact moving forward. So let's see. We have a question for Dr. Calhoun. You mentioned a project. Is there a required project? And can this be an initiative at your home institution that addresses health equity and honing your leadership skills?
Tracy, thank you for your question. Yes, we do have a capstone project as part of the fellowship. It's in tandem. There is an open credit requirement at the basic school of management, but we're fortunate enough to be able to fill that with a rich space to explore ideas that are important to us and that I'm sure many of you will express in your admissions application and interviews. And it can be a collaboration with your home institution. For me personally, I'm interested in understanding kind of the business case for health disparities and am working to collaborate with school of management faculty, Commonwealth resources, to really kind of leverage all of this network to do that in a very rigorous, sustainable, and structured way. Some of my colleagues are taking direct community implementation approaches and policy approaches. So there's a broad swath of opportunity for that. And I also wanted to address the anonymous attendee question prior. I know some of you may be interested about maybe like what exam did you take? I took the executive assessment, and I took like board certifications frequently, but I've never taken a GMAT or GRE, and that's what worked best for me. I think speaking more broadly, a lot of my colleagues are at work and working, and so I wouldn't, I can't tell you not to worry, but I just know that everybody has a lot going on. But regarding our capstone project, yeah, it's just a great opportunity for us to really kind of bring together the network, our like personal goals and interests, and have a practical, tangible output.
Thank you. And we do recommend that our applicants take the EA instead of the other exams. So you can certainly do that. The EA is an assessment of readiness for the program rather than sort of a wealth of knowledge. So Dr. Nunes-Smith, can you talk a little bit about why it's important for fellows to also be practitioners?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to echo just a few of the things that Dr. Calhoun shared about the process and the capstone project in particular. So there's no busy work in the fellowship. So we want to make sure that the time you spend in that capstone will be high yield in addition. So it is a requirement for the fellowship program, and it can be with your home institution. But again, the idea is that this will be something that will simultaneously advance the fellows' career and career goals while meeting the needs of a population that is vulnerable. So we are a program designed for practitioners, just to remind us of the language that Dr. Foreman used when he was here, sort of people who are clinically facing. So it's a pretty broad tent. So even though we might sort of default to think about physicians or nurses, physician assistants or associates, certainly, but we look beyond that. Folks who are have different kinds of training. I want to say that. So different kinds of professional training to get to this point. The idea is that now the work that you are centered on is clinically facing, is clinically impactful, and that's because of that real-time transfer we're looking for. We want people to sort of take what they learned today and go to work tomorrow and apply it and start making change. And we are thinking about the healthcare sector in a much broader scope, right? So our responsibility within the healthcare sector to help contribute to health generally. And so we think that the practitioner is the person best situated to both identify and articulate the problems we're facing, but also to immediately make change and transform their organizations to address equity. But again, talk with us. I mean, I think that's one of the big take homes from today's webinar, because I know there have been many people who have sort of said, oh, I didn't think, I wasn't a physician, or I wasn't, and so I didn't think that the program was intended for me. And so one of the wonderful thing about the School of Management, which has just been an incredible partner for this fellowship, I was just saying that before the webinar, because everyone over here is just incredibly generous, and the support for this program has been overwhelming. So it's a great sort of anchor institution for this program. Everybody is more than happy to have a conversation. So if you're having any questions about your eligibility, am I a practitioner? Is what I'm doing clinically facing enough? Any of those questions are really appropriate to bring forward to the admissions team for consideration.
And thank you for that. And that's a great segue as we come to the end of our time. Please, if you're interested, please reach out to the admissions team. You can also go to our website and sign up for pre-assessment to start having these conversations about whether or not this is a good fit for you. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you to our panelists, Dr. Nunes-Smith and Dr. Calhoun, for your time. And we look forward to engaging with all of you online at Evans Hall, as well as learning more about your background and interests. Thank you very much. Have a good day.